It begins with silence, a slab of fresh meat laid bare beneath a veil of white crystals. No fire, no smoke, no heat, just salt. This is Gan, the oldest and purest Chinese method of meat preservation, where life is stopped but never wasted. Centuries ago, when hunters returned from the mountains or butchers prepared for the long winter, salt was their only shield against time. The process was simple, almost ritualistic. Thick cuts of pork or duck were rubbed with coarse sea salt, layer upon layer until the flesh surrendered its moisture. The salt drew out water, stripped away weakness, and left behind only strength. Firm, dry, and safe from decay. That's the secret of dry salting. It replaces life with longevity. Without water, bacteria can't grow. What's left behind is meat transformed, dense, savory, and enduring. In ancient villages, these salted slabs would hang beneath rafters, perfuming the air with quiet promise. Days turned to weeks, and what began as fresh meat became food that could last seasons. Food that kept families alive through cold, famine, and silence. Even today in rural kitchens, the tradition remains. Salt isn't just a preservative. It's a pact between time, patience, and hunger. But salt alone was only the beginning. When the meat met liquid, a new kind of magic began. One that softened salt sting and birthed flavor from the depths of brine. The sound of bubbling brine fills the courtyard, a slow dance of salt and water. This is wet brining, the gentler sibling of dry salting, where preservation begins not with dryness but immersion. In ancient China, where rivers gave life and floods took it away, the method was simple. Let salt flow like water and carry its strength deep into the meat. Cuts of pork or duck were soaked in salted water infused with herbs, wine, and sometimes sugar. Over days, the liquid crept into every fiber, seasoning from within while halting decay. Unlike dry salting, which preserved through withdrawal, wet brining preserved through embrace, a balance of flavor and safety. Its secret lay in osmosis. Salt replaced moisture, bacteria drowned, and the meat grew firm and fragrant. When hung to dry, it kept for months. When cooked, it glowed with tenderness. In rural homes, brining jars lined the walls, quiet guardians of the coming winter. Their contents weren't just sustenance, but reassurance that even in scarcity, patience breeds plenty. And when the brine was drained and the jars emptied, the next transformation began. Meat meeting the open air, dancing with the wind instead of water. In the highlands of China, winter air moves like glass, cold, clean, unrelenting. It's here that fungan or wind curing turns raw flesh into something eternal. No salt vats, no smoke, just meat strung from wooden beams, catching the rhythm of the wind. Each gust draws out moisture. Each night deepens flavor. The process is silent but alive. Nature itself acting as the preservative. Wind curing began in remote villages where cold seasons were long and storage scarce. The people learned to trust the air, crisp enough to dry, pure enough to protect. The secret lies in balance. The right breeze, the right temperature, and time. Too warm and rot wins. Too cold and the meat freezes before it can change. Weeks later, the color darkens. The aroma ripens. Smoky, sweet, untouched by flame. These cured slabs hang proudly in kitchens, symbols of thrift and timing. Even now during New Year's feast, families slice wind-cured meat, savoring what the sky itself helped create. And when the winds calm, another power takes over. The sun, bold and relentless, preserving with heat instead of breath. When the sun ruled the fields and shadows vanished, shy gun or sun-drying gave meat its immortality. Across courtyards and rooftops, red strips of pork and duck glistened like lacquer in the golden light. This was preservation by firelight, not from a hearth, but from the heavens. The sun's heat and dry air drew out every drop of moisture, leaving behind flavor condensed to its core. What began as perishable became permanent. Sun-drying was born in southern China, where salt met sunshine and patience met practicality. The secret was purity. No rain, no humidity, no haste. The meat's surface hardened, sealing its essence inside, while the warmth acted as a natural sterilizer. It was more than a method, it was a ritual. Families watched over hanging meats the way farmers watch over crops, turning them daily, whispering weather prayers. Each day of drying was a promise of nourishment to come. The result? Meat that glowed like mahogany, fragrant, chewy, and capable of surviving months, even years. But not every flavor thrived in the sun. Some demanded darkness, fire, and smoke, where preservation became not just survival, but transformation. A curl of blue smoke rises through the rafters, carrying the scent of pine, tea leaves, and thyme. This is Shunxi, the Chinese art of preservation through smoke. Long before refrigerators, fire became the keeper of life. In mountain villages, where cold nights crept into the walls and dampness spoiled the harvest, families turned to smoke as both shield and storyteller. The process was simple, patient, and sacred. Meat hung above smoldering embers, never in the flames, but near enough to feel their warmth. Over hours, days, even weeks, the smoke slowly dried the flesh, sealing it in a coat of oil and resin. The phenols in the wood acted like armor, keeping out decay and insects while deepening the meat's color to amber red. Each spark left its mark, a flavor that was both earthy and eternal. Smoked duck in the south, smoked pork in the north. Every region had its own ritual, its own scent. For generations, these meats carried families through winter, feast and famine alike. Smoke didn't just preserve food, it preserved memory, the taste of home in every wisp of gray. And when the last ember cooled, another secret waited, one hidden in the gleam of rice wine. The first sip burns, but the secret lies in what it saves. Alcohol curing, preservation through spirit, is one of China's most refined ancient techniques. Long before chemistry had a name, people discovered that wine could guard life as well as celebrate it. Fresh cuts of meat were rinsed in rice wine or baijiu, soaked or brushed daily until their scent turned sharp and clean. The alcohol seeped deep into the flesh, drawing out moisture while killing unseen decay. No fire, no ice, just a quiet alchemy between grain, time, and patience. The science is simple. Ethanol sterilizes, evaporates quickly, and leaves behind a barrier that halts bacteria. The result was tender, fragrant meat that lasted weeks, even months, imbued with the perfume of rice, herbs, and preservation itself. In dynastic kitchens, this method was a mark of sophistication, a union of practicality and luxury. To cure meat in wine was to preserve not just food, but dignity through scarcity. And when the jars were sealed and the scent of wine faded, something gentler took its place. A sweetness that preserved through grace, not force. Sweetness and survival rarely share a story, yet in sugar curing, they become one. In ancient Chinese kitchens, sugar wasn't just indulgence, it was armor. Where salt cut and smoke hardened, sugar soothed, preserving meat with tenderness instead of toughness. Pork bellies or duck legs were coated in a blend of sugar and salt, sometimes spiced with star anise or ginger. Left to rest in cool air, the mixture drew out moisture, forming a glossy glaze that both seasoned and sealed. The sugar didn't rot or sour. It created an invisible shell, keeping air and bacteria at bay. The secret lies in its chemistry. Sugar binds to water molecules, leaving none for decay. The result, golden supple meat that could last for months and taste better with age. The flavor was rich, sweet, savory, layered with the warmth of time. During the new year, families shared sugar-cured meats as symbols of good fortune. Sweetness enduring through hardship. To taste it was to remember that gentleness too could preserve strength. And as that sweetness lingered, another protection stirred, thick, golden, and ancient, where time was stopped not by salt or sugar, but by pure rendered fat. Imagine meat suspended in gold, glistening, silent, preserved. This is fat encapsulation, one of China's oldest and most ingenious preservation arts. Long before refrigeration, families discovered that rendered lard could lock out decay better than any cellar. Freshly cooked meat was submerged in molten pork fat, sealed from air, and stored in cool earthen pots. As the fat cooled, it hardened into a pale armor, isolating the food beneath from oxygen and moisture, the two enemies of time. The result, meat that stayed tender and edible for months, sometimes a year. But the process didn't just protect, it perfected. Over time, the trapped meat absorbed the mellow flavor of aged fat, becoming richer, smoother, and hauntingly aromatic. This was food that improved with patience. In old villages, such jars were opened only during celebrations, a literal unsealing of joy. To eat preserved meat was to taste both past and preservation itself. The art of keeping life beneath lard was a quiet triumph over time. Yet not all aging happened in silence. Some meats were left to breathe, to ferment, and come alive in flavor before they ever met flame. They hang like red lanterns from bamboo poles, long, slender, and glistening in the cold. This is China's fermented sausage, known for centuries as lang, a union of meat, salt, sugar, and patience. Born from the southern provinces where humidity meets ingenuity, these sausages owe their immortality to fermentation. Minced pork is mixed with rice wine, salt, and sugar, then stuffed into casings and left to dry in open air. As days pass, natural microbes awaken, transforming fresh meat into something complex, tangy, and aromatic. The secret lies in controlled decay. Good bacteria outcompete the bad, lowering pH and sealing the sausage in its own protection. Time adds flavor. Dryness adds strength. What emerges is meat that can last months, even through a harsh winter. To the Chinese, lang isn't just food, it's heritage. Every bite recalls smoke from the hearth, laughter from the new year, and the defiant sweetness of survival. Not every technique relied on time alone, though. Some began with flame, sealing life in with a burst of heat before surrendering it to the wind. A hiss of oil, a shimmer of heat. The first step in par cooking before drying begins not with preservation, but with fire. In ancient China, where humidity could ruin a harvest overnight, cooks learned that heat could do what salt and smoke could not: kill danger before it began. The technique was practical genius. Strips of meat were briefly boiled, steamed, or seared to destroy surface bacteria and release excess fat. Then, while still warm, they were hung to dry under sun, wind, or smoke. The result was preservation made safer, quicker, and cleaner. Par cooking reduced moisture and created a firm outer layer that locked in the juices. Once dried, the meat remained supple inside, yet hard enough outside to resist spoilage. Soldiers carried it across provinces. Farmers stored it through monsoons. It was efficiency made art and a method that balanced flavor with foresight. Even today, echoes of it remain in dried pork slices, jerky, and duck prepared for travel. Part 2. Yet, when even heat and wind weren't enough, the Chinese turned to something older, heavier: the earth itself, to guard their food beneath layers of clay. Buried in the ground, silent as a tomb, Nangquang, or clay ceiling storage, was one of China's most enduring secrets of preservation. In times before glass, metal, or cold, the earth itself became the refrigerator. Cooked or salted meat was packed into clay jars, topped with melted fat or brine, then sealed with thick mud. Once hardened, the seal became airtight. No air, no insects, no rot. The jars were buried in cool cellars or courtyards where the earth kept them at a steady temperature year-round. Months later, when the clay was cracked open, the air filled with a faint sweetness, proof that time had passed, but the food had endured untouched. This was a preservation through isolation, survival through stillness. To the Chinese, these buried jars symbolized trust, faith and patience, in nature and in craft. They turned earth into guardian and time into ally. Yet not all secrets slept beneath the soil. Some shimmered above it, sealed not by clay, but by the golden brilliance of oil itself. In a kitchen bathed in lamplight, a jar gleams with gold, clear shimmering oil hiding its secret below. This is yuan kong, or oil immersion preservation, the art of sealing time beneath stillness. Long before canning existed, the Chinese learned that oil could do what air never could: protect. Cooked meats, tofu, or even duck eggs were submerged in sesame or soybean oil, their flavors locked in by the liquid's smooth embrace. Air, the bringer of rot, was kept out completely. Without oxygen, no decay could take hold. The oil hardened slightly in cold months, preserving color, texture, and scent as if the food had just been made. Beyond practicality, oil preservation carried elegance, a symbol of refinement and care. The clear jars glowed like treasure, their contents untouched by time. Every spoonful drawn from within was a taste of patience rewarded. But while oil sealed flavor in silence, another method spoke in spice and aroma. Where preservation began with scent before salt ever touched the tongue, the air thickens with fragrance. Cinnamon, clove, and star anise swirling in hot wine. Spice marinade preservation was the poet's answer to survival, where preservation became as much about beauty as necessity. In ancient households, meat was simmered gently in a broth of soy sauce, rice wine, sugar, and warming spices. When cooled, it was stored in the same liquid, the aromatics working as natural preservatives. The salt, alcohol, and spice formed a protective harmony, a trinity against decay. Each day, the flavors deepened, turning simple cuts into dark, glossy jewels of taste. Its secret was sophistication, chemistry hidden within cuisine. The spices didn't just season, they shielded. Cloves, eugenol, cinnamon's oil, and soy salt combined to fight spoilage while layering the meat in perfume and warmth. To the Chinese, this was preservation elevated, food fit for nobles and scholars alike. Every bite was survival wrapped in poetry. But where spice preserved through scent, another method relied on earth itself, not for burial this time, but for protection through the grains of rice. It looks humble, a barrel of pale powder, soft as dust. But inside, treasures sleep. Rice bran packing, a quiet art of preservation, was China's answer to rot in humid seasons. Leftover rice bran, the nutrient-rich layer removed from milled grain, became the perfect guardian. Its dry, slightly oily texture absorbed moisture and kept air at bay. Cooked or cured meats were packed tightly within it, surrounded by the brand's natural shield of oils and antioxidants. This technique was especially loved in southern China, where humidity could spoil food overnight. The brand drew away dampness, slowing time itself. Months later, when unearthed, the meat emerged fragrant, golden, and unchanged. Its flavor mellowed, but intact. The brilliance of rice bran lay in its simplicity, a byproduct turned protector, waste turned wisdom. It reflected a culture that saw preservation not as indulgence, but as reverence for every grain. And as the last handful of bran was brushed away, another secret waited, one forged from salt and ash, where preservation met the purity of fire. In dim storerooms, where light barely touched the walls, a different kind of snow covered the meat, fine, gray, and silent. This was salt ash packing, a preservation born from both earth and fire. When salt alone wasn't enough, the Chinese turned to ashes, the clean remnants of burned wood and straw, to aid in the fight against time. Meat was first salted, then layered between handfuls of wood ash. The mixture absorbed moisture, while the ash's natural alkalinity kept rot and insects away. It was chemistry without science, perfected through generations of watching and waiting. In weeks, the flesh would firm, darken, and develop a faint, smoky perfume, the scent of fire captured in silence. The method thrived in the mountain provinces where winters were cruel and storage was scarce. Each bundle of ash-wrapped meat was a promise against hunger. It was humble preservation, but elegant in its precision. Yet not every secret was born of smoke and ash. Some glistened like gold, sealing sweetness where salt once ruled. It shines like glass, catching light with every brush. Honey glazing, one of China's most delicate preservation arts. Long before refrigeration, honey was a liquid miracle, a natural antiseptic, a desiccant, and a gift from the gods. In ancient times, roasted meats, duck, pork, or quail were coated in thick layers of honey while still warm. The sugar pulled out moisture and formed a golden crust that sealed freshness beneath it. Honey's natural acidity and low water content made it nearly immortal, and it passed that gift to whatever it touched. The meat beneath the glaze stayed supple and fragrant for weeks, its flavor deepened by sweetness and time. Each piece glowed amber in the lamplight, sticky with memory and preservation alike. Honey glazing wasn't just about survival, it was a celebration of beauty, a balance between art and necessity. In banquet halls and temples alike, glazed meats gleamed like offerings to longevity. But not all preservations sparkled with gold. Some darkened with soy, and secrets steeped in the depth of fermentation itself. The scent hits first, deep, dark, and savory. Pickled meat and soy ferment. It is preservation through transformation, an invention born in the smoky kitchens of southern China, where soy ruled every pot. Chunks of pork or duck were submerged in aged soy sauce mixed with salt, wine, and sometimes rice flour. Over time, the liquid thickened and darkened, fermenting in its own quiet rhythm. The soy salt and natural acids worked together to halt decay, while flavor burrowed deep into the meat's fibers. Months later, the meat would emerge blackened but fragrant, its surface glossy with umami-rich life. This was preservation turned alchemy, a process that traded freshness for complexity. It could last seasons, its taste growing deeper the longer it slept. To many families, soy-pickled meat was a treasure jar opened only for guests or holidays. It represented the soul of Chinese flavor, balance, patience, and depth. And while fermentation captured time in darkness, another method froze it in the light, harnessing winter's breath to preserve purity itself. When northern winds carved the plains into crystal, the Chinese turned cold into an ally. Freeze aging or winter preservation was nature's way of stopping time. In ancient Manchuria and the northern provinces, meat wasn't merely stored, it was perfected by frost. Fresh cuts were hung outside during sub-zero nights where the air froze them instantly. By day, sunlight softened the ice just enough for enzymes to tenderize the meat before it froze again by nightfall. This natural cycle, freeze, thaw, freeze, continued for weeks. The result was astonishing. Meat, both preserved and matured, tender yet firm, rich with subtle sweetness. It could hang for months without spoiling, surviving winter's cruelty through the rhythm of the season itself. Freeze aging was simplicity elevated to art, a partnership with nature rather than defiance of it. Farmers didn't fear winter, they used it. The cold became both enemy and friend, sculptor and savior. But when the frost melted and spring returned, another preservation took its place, one of warmth, leaves, and fragrant smoke curling through the air. The room fills with fragrance, not just of meat, but of memory. Tea smoking is preservation turned poetry, where flavor and longevity rise together in smoke. In ancient households, duck or pork was first marinated in salt, soy, and wine, then dried briefly in the air. When ready, it was placed above a smoldering mixture of black tea, rice, sugar, and camphor leaves. The tea didn't just scent the meat, it shielded it. The aromatic smoke acted as a natural preservative, coating every surface in oils that repelled moisture and decay. The result was something almost sacred: golden skin, smoky sweetness, and an aroma that lingered like incense. The meat stayed safe for weeks, even months, its flavor deepening with time. Tea smoking blurred the line between cooking and keeping. It was nourishment, meditation, and mastery in one act. proof that preservation could be as graceful as art. But not every secret was wrapped in smoke and fragrance. Some were sealed in shells, humble, ancient, and perfect in their own quiet armor. They look simple, smooth, pale, and ordinary. But inside, a miracle hides. Salting eggs, whether duck or chicken, is China's humble triumph of preservation. For centuries, families have coated fresh eggs in a paste of salt, clay, and rice husks, then stored them for weeks. The salt slowly penetrates the shell, firming the whites into jelly and turning the yolk rich, oily, and golden. The result is a flavor unlike anything fresh, savory, creamy, and eternal. The science is elegant. Salt draws out water, halting bacteria while concentrating fats and proteins. The egg doesn't rot, it ripens. Once opened, it glows with the color of sunrise and the scent of the sea. In every corner of China, salted eggs are symbols of patience and resourcefulness, proof that even the simplest food can hold eternity within. They grace kanji, mooncakes, and festival tables alike. And as the last egg is cracked, one truth remains: that for the Chinese, preservation isn't just about saving food, it's about mastering time itself. Each jar, each crystal, each flame was a way to defy decay and turn impermanence into flavor. But what happens when the food itself should never fade? When grains, sauces, and spices last not months, but generations? In the next video, we'll open the storerooms of China and uncover 20 foods the Chinese stockpile that never expire. If these ancient secrets of survival and flavor have changed the way you look at your own kitchen, please subscribe and like our channel. We are unearthing the history they tried to bury. Let's Gieo Trong Tung Lai. The next treasure chest of history will open soon.